Hi, Dr. Carol Francis, and today we just really do have to talk about what it's like for someone to come forth to state to whomever, I was raped, I was molested, someone attempted to rape me, someone attempted to molest me. To be able to come straight forward out to say that is humongous. To have someone be able to say it has torn them inside and ripped them and exposed them, and the level of risk they're taking with you for them to tell you about it is huge. So when you hear someone say it to you, don't just say, oh, okay, that's too bad. A little insensitive, wouldn't you say? Or, really? Honestly? That's unbelievable. And that's a little bit what the GOP, that's a lot what the GOP is saying to Dr. Ford. Someone tried to rape her, and she's pointing her finger at Kavanaugh. Of course, we all understand that. But at the same time, recognize that she came out not for her own skin, but because she felt like someone who lacked integrity. Who's already been proven that he's lied so many times to the government under certain circumstances, in many ways that have been well proven and documented here. Once again, she's saying he's lying. He lacks integrity. We don't want him on the most important governmental position. Integrity is supremely important, especially in an era of really seriously non-integrous politics. So she's coming out not for anything that benefits her. What's the benefit to her? Right? Now, I understand there are people who lie. There's some people who are paid. There are some people who, out of revenge, make up stories. There's some people who get it wrong. But let's think about this. Those are probably less frequent, but those events of lies make it so much harder for those that are trying to tell the truth for the right reasons, even if they're personal reasons. Sometimes stating what's happened to you sets you free. Sometimes it helps propel the road of righteousness and justice. Other times it's there to help compassionately, to empathize and assist those other individuals that have gone through exactly the same thing. So for whatever the right reasons are, a person comes out to tell their story. The worst thing you can do is to minimize it, deny it. Oh, that was 35 years ago. What? So now maybe you're a little bit confused. 35 years ago. Do you realize that to come out when it happened to her would have been incredibly dangerous and complicated and difficult? And she actually did tell people along the way. Privately, those she could trust, those that were sworn to privacy and confidentiality, she told, so that she could work it through, so that she could move forward in her life and live a fruitful life. But now, 35 years later, that same story that she did tell over and over and over again to very relevant and trustful people has to be told now because the entire United States is at risk for having someone who perpetrated a crime, a federal crime, against a woman. And we need to stand up for it. But let's go a little bit deeper in this. If you've never been raped, if you've never been molested, if you've never had someone attempt rape or attempt molestation on you, you probably will not understand how extremely difficult, violent, and tearing up inside you become when it's happened to you. You might try to imagine how horrible it is, but you really can't. It's not something you can imagine to the depths of what goes on inside of people. It becomes so awful that when it happens to someone, they don't want to believe it, perhaps. Or when it happens to them, they have to totally disassociate from the experience. Or when they don't disassociate from it, they live in panic and terror and fear of all future relationships that are related to sexuality or related to the other sex, related to potential violent circumstances, because you forever know that you could be overpowered, that you could be harmed, that someone else could move their energies so forcefully on you that would be the end of your innocence, well-being, safety. And the terror of that sort of thing, you must realize, may be beyond your ability to understand or appreciate. Now, I do want you to realize that there are some individuals who had teenage aggressive sex with a partner who are currently trembling because they wonder, is what they did a potential rape? Is what they did a potential molestation? Is what they did attempted rape? And when they hear the situation that Dr. Ford's excuse me, that Dr. Ford's talking about, there are some that are worried because they remember when they were too aggressive. They remember when they were dominant. They remember when they were drunk and they were imposing. They remember, and they also try to forget, and they try to minimize because they've tried to go on with their life as well. How do you tell the difference between someone who really is sorry and wishes they could take it back and someone who is too drunk to remember or doesn't care, has too much at risk to admit the truth? Well, the person who actually really cares that they did it has remorse, guilt, regret, a wish to make things up, attempts to make things better, attempt to make a better life, or they go the other extreme. They make their life so bad, so awful, so rueful, because they don't feel like they deserve to go forward. So I do know that there's a number of people out there that are listening to what's going on and are remembering their teen years and saying, whoa, this is not too different than what I did. Now, some of you, sociopathic, con men, and ruthless and narcissistic and entitled and thought it was just fun sex and never even considered that your partner might not like it or enjoy it, that could be true too. But some of you actually look back and care that you might have done that to a sexual partner. You were faced with a dilemma as well because you harmed someone severely. Now, in this particular situation, Dr. Ford is coming out not for herself. She would have preferred to know what happened to her, to tell the people that matter to her, and to move on with her life being productive, helpful, kind, generous, giving, and living in peace and safety. She's thrown all of that away so that you and I could look at our Supreme Court justices and say they are noble people with integrity. And if this passes without the GOP giving it the honor, without the FBI, without the White House giving it the honor of true, discerning, discriminating, just hearing, you and I don't get that integrity. We don't get that person on there. We already had that with Anita Hill. We already know what that justice is guilty of and what he's denied. We don't need to live with any more individuals up in our government that are easygoing and don't care what they've really done to harm other people. So it's time for us to stand up. Even if you don't understand it, stand up and care. And by the way, if anybody tells you they were raped, molested, or they were potentially going to be raped unless they stopped the intervention, listen with a heart that grieves for that individual to have suffered the violence at the hands of someone else that was just pursuing their own selfish interests. Dr. Carol Francis, take it.